Salem is known for its history, but this story isn't about witches. It's about a 17-year-old art student who painted a small door at the end of a hallway, a door no one remembered seeing, until she noticed it had always been there. Blackwood School of the Art sits on the quiet edge of Salem, built in the early 1700s as a church, later restored into a fine arts high school, tall Gothic windows, stone walls that hold the cold, a long main corridor that never seems fully bright. Students joke about how old it feels, but old doesn't mean dangerous, just layered. Clara Voss was 17. She moved from Boston 2 years earlier. Her mother studied colonial history. Clara studied art. She had a habit her teacher called automatic detail. Sometimes her hand added things she hadn't consciously planned. "Your instincts are strong," Mr. Harmon would say. Clara wasn't sure it was instinct. Sometimes it felt like memory. "Paint the main corridor," Mr. Harmon said. "Look closer than you ever have." Clara stood in the hallway after class. She noticed how the light faded halfway down, how the right wall had subtle cracks forming curved shapes, how some floor stones were slightly different shades. She sketched carefully. Nothing unusual, just stone, just shadow. That evening, she finished the painting in the studio. The room was quiet. Most students had already left. Clara added the final shadows, careful with the fading light along the corridor. When she stepped back, she paused. Something felt different. Her eyes moved across the canvas. Everything looked right until she saw it. Near the lower right corner, a small Gothic arch shape. Clara frowned. She didn't remember painting that. She stepped closer. It looked like a door, not obvious, subtle, blended into the cracks of the stone. The lines weren't random. They followed the wall naturally, as if they had always been there. She checked her sketchbook. Nothing. No arch. No door. Clara looked back at the painting. Now she couldn't unsee it. "It fits," she whispered, and it did, like something hidden, finally noticed. The next morning, Clara returned to the corridor earlier than usual. The building was quieter before first period. No footsteps, no voices echoing off the stone, just the low hum of the heating system and the faint creak of old wood somewhere far away. She stood in front of the section of wall she had painted. Same spot, lower right side. She hesitated for a moment, then reached out. Her fingers brushed the cold stone. At first it felt completely flat, solid, unbroken. She moved her hand slowly across the surface. Nothing. Then a curve, so faint she almost pulled her hand back. Clara froze. She pressed her fingertips more carefully against the wall and traced it again. There it was, a shallow arch, not carved deeply, not decorative, just suggested, like something that had once been there and was later covered over. She leaned in closer. The stone in that area was slightly smoother, worn differently, as if time had treated it in another way. Clara stepped back and looked at it from a distance. Now that she knew where to look, she could see it, barely, a soft outline blending into the natural cracks of the wall. She glanced down at her sketchbook and flipped it open. Same curve, same proportions, almost identical. A quiet feeling settled in her chest, not fear, not excitement, recognition. She ran her hand along the edge one more time, this time slower, more deliberate, possibly sealed long ago, possibly part of the original structure, possibly just coincidence. But it didn't feel random. It felt intentional. Behind her, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Students were starting to arrive. The moment shifted. The corridor felt normal again. Clara closed her sketchbook, but before she left, she looked at the wall one last time. Now that she had seen it, it was impossible not to. When Mr. Harmon saw Clara's unfinished canvas, he didn't speak right away. He stepped closer, studied the lower corner. His expression changed slightly, not surprised, more like remembering. "Interesting," he said quietly. Clara watched him. "You see it too?" Mr. Harmon nodded. "I do." He walked over to an old wooden cabinet near the back of the studio. The drawer made a soft scraping sound as he opened it. Inside were stacks of aged paper, student work from years ago. Decades, maybe. He flipped through them carefully, like he knew exactly what he was looking for. Then he stopped, pulled one out. "This," he said. He placed it beside Clara's painting. It was a pencil sketch of the same corridor. Simpler, less detailed, but clear enough. And there, in almost the exact same place, was the arch. Subtle, easy to miss, but once seen, obvious. Clara leaned closer. "They saw it too," she said. Mr. Harmon nodded slowly. "Late 1980s, he said. "I was a new teacher back then." "What were they like?" Clara asked. Mr. Harmon paused. "Observant," he said. "Very quiet, always noticing things other students ignored." Clara glanced back at her own painting. "That sounds familiar." A faint smile crossed his face. "Yes," he said, "it does." Clara pointed to the sketch. "Did they ever figure out what it was?" Mr. Harmon shook his head. "Not really. There was some talk about old building plans, sealed sections, nothing confirmed." "What happened to them?" Clara asked. "They transferred the next year," he said. "Family moved, I think. No dramatic ending, no mystery, just gone." Clara studied the old paper again. The lines were slightly shaky in places, but the arch was drawn with care, like it mattered, like it had been seen clearly. "Do you think it's actually a door?" Clara asked. Mr. Harmon considered the question. "Buildings this old change over time," he said. "Things get closed off, hidden, forgotten." He glanced toward the hallway. "Sometimes not on purpose." Clara followed his gaze. The corridor beyond the studio looked the same as always. Students passing, lockers opening. Normal. "Should we tell someone?" she asked. Mr. Harmon smiled slightly. "And say what?" he replied. "That there might be a sealed arch in a 300-year-old wall?" Clara didn't answer. He wasn't wrong. Mr. Harmon looked back at her painting. "You didn't imagine it," he said. Clara nodded slowly. "I know." He tapped lightly on the edge of the canvas. "That's what good observation does," he added. "It brings things forward." Clara looked again at the small arch. Now it felt less like something she added and more like something she had uncovered. Something quiet, something old, something that had been there long before anyone thought to look. At home, Clara studied her painting again. The small arch seemed clearer now, not opening, not glowing, just defined, as if her mind had sharpened what her eyes previously ignored. She researched the building's renovation history. Old churches often had side chambers, storage alcoves, sealed prayer spaces. It wasn't supernatural, it was historical, and she had noticed it before anyone else. The following week, Clara presented the finished painting. Her classmates leaned closer. "I never saw that," one said. "Me neither," another added. Mr. Harmon smiled. "That's the point," he said. "Art doesn't invent things, it reveals what we overlook." Clara looked at the corridor differently after that. Not darker, not frightening, just deeper. Sometimes, when light hits the wall at the right angle, you can see the faint outline of an old architectural arch. Most students walk past it, but once you've noticed it, you can't unsee it. Blackwood School still stands in Salem. The corridor is still dim in the middle, and on the right wall, near the floor, there is a faint curve in the stone. Maybe it was once a doorway. Maybe it was just design. But sometimes, all it takes is one person looking closely to uncover something that was always there. Not every hidden door leads somewhere. Some simply remind us to pay attention. The end. This story is a work of fiction. The school, characters, and events have been created for storytelling purposes. Any resemblance to real persons or institutions is coincidental. Note: for more mysterious and dramatic stories, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications.